you all for coming. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
When I started this class this week, I forgot to introduce myself for an hour. So I should say that I'm Professor Kilburn, representing Endicott College. That's where I work, that's where I live. And it's been my pleasure to teach this cohort here for the final stage of the Masters of International Education. I'm going to read mostly from the script because we're all very tired, and there's some things I want to say too. On behalf of Endicott College, it is my honor and my privilege on this beautiful day to welcome the students, families, friends, and colleagues to the 2014 commencement ceremonies for the graduates of the Master of Education in International Education and ESL program. Smattering of applause. Welcome to Prague. I would now ask the graduates to please stand, turn, and recognize your families and loved ones who have supported you in this journey and traveled far today to share in your celebration. I would now ask the graduates to stand, turn, and have your families and loved ones celebrate what you have given them. Now you can sit down.
All right.
I didn't say Simon Says. We've come here from all corners of the world to gather together and study, reflection, and celebration of the discipline and vision of higher education. The advanced degree that you have earned through years of intense study, sacrifice, toil, and tears is only a formal recognition of your deep commitment and service to the cause of international education. The graduating students and their families should be justly proud of your accomplishments today, but the real honor is manifest not in the academic degrees you have rightly earned and will receive today. Most of you. Just kidding. It's not manifest in the ceremony or the credentials, the letters that you can put behind your name for the rest of your life. Although after reading English, we might be a little skeptical of certification. Rather, the honor is in your everyday work, deepening and enriching the lives of others, and your substantive role, living out the true meaning of the mission of international education, to promote understanding, justice, peace, and positive change. As the Brazilian education theorist Paulo Freire reminds us in his letters to those who dare teach, you are not only teachers, but agents of democratic enfranchisement and empowerment. We're fortunate this year to hold our commencement ceremony at Prague Castle, Endicott, the traditional seat of power in the Czech lands for more than 1,000 years. In 1989, when protesters were demanding an end to the communist system, a rumpled dissident and playwright named Václav Havel emerged as the leader and symbol of this velvet revolution. The signs in the crowd demanded Havel na hrad. Always a teacher. Havel na hrad. Havel to the castle. After the success of the revolution and the acclamation of Havel as the first post-communist president of Czechoslovakia, the signs were changed grammatically to read Havel na hradě. signifying, here's the teaching part, signifying in a shift from the accusative to the locative case that freedom and democracy have replaced the drudgery, cynicism, and despair of the totalitarian regime, signifying that, in Havel's naive but powerful conviction, paraphrasing Jan Hus, that truth and love will prevail over lies and hatred, signifying that the former dissident and political prisoner was now in the castle and not just looking at it from below. In a similar way, the goal that you have been working towards so intently and diligently for the past few years has been achieved. And you are now also both figuratively and literally nahradje. So welcome. You are in good company here. I always like to give a little context, which I think deepens the meaning of what we're doing here. Pražský hrad is the largest ancient castle in the world. It was built from the 9th century onward, and we use a lot of construction metaphors in this class. Frameworks, structure, scaffolding, drywall screws. You're all wearing mortar boards, designed after a tool used in masonry to lift the mortar to a higher level once you've taken the bricks above a certain course. That's why we shape like that. Hold it by the handle, you put the mortar on top, literally, and lift it up so the mason can lay the bricks and continue onwards. That's also why the undergraduate honor society is called mortar board. More on that. Probably more than there, but more on that in a minute. The Masons, architects, builders, and stoneworkers were the first guild to free themselves from the patronage system of the state in the Middle Ages and form free trade unions and professional associations. Economically independent, these Freemasons began to demand political rights and liberties, freedom of speech and conscience. Would the graduates please stand, turn, and welcome.
You made it! Our token male.
Hey, he does not represent the entire. You may sit. I'm glad you made it. I was just talking about Masons. So now economically independent, these Freemasons began to demand political rights and liberties, freedom of speech and conscience, and began promoting scholarship, rationalism, learning, including the stages of learning: apprentice, journeyman, and master. And eventually helping establish the foundations of liberal democracy. George Washington was a Freemason. History is written in stone here in Prague, from the magnificent Cathedral of St. Vitus to the cobblestone streets, from the high to the low, from philosophy to delivering the mail. St. Vitus, this spare Gothic cathedral, was constructed by master builder Peter Parler, who also built the Charles Bridge, adding eggs to the mortar for strength. The cathedral was adorned later with decorative Baroque elements, cherubs and so on, and a Baroque chapel was affixed to the side. After the Counter-Reformation defeated Protestantism in the Czech lands and reimposed a rigid, hierarchical institutional structure of Catholicism to reframe man's relationship with God. Here and around the city, architectural styles from Art Nouveau to Cubism to Brutalism reshaped the profile. Prague was the site, as some of us saw yesterday, of the largest statue of Stalin ever constructed, which towered over Letna Plain for only a few short years before being awkwardly destroyed following the denunciation of Stalin by Khrushchev in 1956. The architect committed suicide. After the revolution, after the Velvet Revolution, there's been many revolutions here, of course, to be specific. After the Velvet Revolution, a metronome was erected on the pedestal of the Stalin monument to remind people of the passage of time and the transience and relativity of even our most powerful and imposing and imposed ideologies. Even Karl Marx himself admitted, all that is solid melts into air. The castle has been a seat of power for Bohemian kings, Holy Roman emperors, and presidents. And Havel was only one of a long line of intellectual leaders who shaped the Czech lands and influenced the world through the power of their ideas, rather than their military might or political subjugation. As the capital of the Holy Roman Empire, Prague was for a time the center of learning and creativity in the arts and sciences in the Western world, the very heart of European civilization. In 1348, King and Emperor Charles IV established the first university in Central Europe, Charles University. And the commitment to learning is represented in the national motto, Pravda vítězí, the truth will prevail. Although a concession is made to anti-essentialism in the unofficial slogan, Všechno je jinak. Everything is relative, is my translation. In the late 14th century, a Czech priest and master at Charles University named Jan Hus was driven by his faith and conviction to challenge the papal constraints on religious and intellectual freedom. And he gave his life in defense of these ideas. He was burned at the stake at the Council of Constance in 1415. And his martyrdom provoked the first Protestant revolution, 100 years before Martin Luther. A revolution based on the principles of individual freedom, conscience, and integrity. The Hussite kingdom lasted for 250 years, repelling multiple crusades against it. And the last bishop of the Protestant Bohemian Brethren, Jan Komensky, or Comenius, is considered to be the father of modern education. He's known as the teacher of nations for advocating radical reforms that are now taken for granted. The universal right to education, lifelong and experiential learning, the importance of play, illustrated textbooks, scaffolding, the use of native language in instruction, and considerations of developmental psychology, and perhaps most radical of all, the education of women. He was exiled after the Catholic reconquest in 1620 and was invited by after the conquest, and in 1620 he was invited by Massachusetts Governor John Winthrop to be the president of Harvard University. So perhaps it's appropriate that you should receive your degree from a Massachusetts college here. Komensky died in exile in Holland, though his ideas continue to resonate and inspire teaching practice throughout the world today, and indeed throughout our classroom last week. This week. The intellectual traditions of the Czech lands continued in the 18th and 19th centuries when scholars and artists resurrected the notion of Czech nationalism through linguistic research and poetic license, a lot of poetic license, rather than political demagoguery and vitriolic patriotism. And unique among the nation-states that emerged from the ashes of World War I and the dissolution of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the leaders of the Czechoslovak national movement, itself ironic because it comprised not only Czechs and Slovaks, but Moravians and others. The leaders were scholars and intellectuals rather than the political and military elites. When Czechoslovakia achieved independence after World War I, they chose as the president not a military leader like the surrounding countries, but a professor of philosophy, Thomas Masaryk. And perhaps not coincidentally, Czechoslovakia was the only country to maintain democracy throughout the war period. Until it was dismembered in the Munich Accord of 1938 and given to Hitler in an attempt to appease Hitler's designs on Europe. In retrospect, maybe not such a good idea. After Hitler's takeover and occupation of the Czech lands, he spent the night in his castle to survey his new domain, and it remained Nazi headquarters until the end of the war. There's a story of Reinhard Heydrich, Hitler's basically third in command and Reich's protector of the occupied territories of Bohemia and Moravia. Heydrich, by the way, was the one who came up with Kristallnacht and was the main architect of the Holocaust. And he's also in control of these occupied territories. So sometimes the story goes that a megalomaniac Heydrich would wear the actual crown of the Czech kings as he goose-stepped around the castle. Despite the local legend that usurpers to the throne who illegitimately put on the crown would die within a year. Less than a year later, Heydrich was assassinated by Czech and Slovak commandos who had been trained by the British. Don't worry, you are no usurpers. You have earned your place here today. You can actually see the same crown jewels on display here in the castle. After the ceremony, if you like, but I wouldn't recommend trying them on. Several So students, or should I say former students, for you are now my peers and colleagues, in this place, and wherever your journey takes you, you are heirs to these traditions, and you should proudly carry forth the principles of truth, love, and learning in your work and in your lives. You know more than you can say. You believe more than you can prove. I hope you continue to trust yourselves and your students. Continue to leave room for the unexpected, the unintentional, what John Cage called the X quantity, and continue to advocate, another Howell quote, continue to advocate for the aims of life over the aims of the system. Thank you for this opportunity to work with you, and congratulations. I'd now like to introduce our first student speaker. Contrary to the program, a little bit out of date, I'd like to introduce, I kept her last name in my notes. It's Lynn Liebert, representing the Masters of International Education ESL cohort.
All right, welcome family, friends, and loved ones, and of course Endicott's 2014 Prague graduation class. Katie and I had a quick chat last week about what we were going to talk about at graduation. We both said at the same time that we would keep it short, light, fun, and personal. I'm going to be honest with you, this might be long. And know what's on the back of this? We are not talking about cultural factors of assessment, okay? It's just an aside, so don't worry. All right. So between reading Havel's Power of the Powerless and writing my teaching philosophy, I asked myself, when am I going to write this speech? It was early last Sunday morning after a Saturday, which was almost completely monopolized by a migraine brought on, I am convinced, by reading Power of the Powerless, that I realized now was the time. I was having my breakfast in Sabina's lovely backyard, feeling grateful that I had made such good friends, good memories, and while now our time was nearly over with, these friendships and memories will carry on. First of all, we must thank all our families, partners, and friends for being supportive to all of us over the past 1 to 2 years. Partners, spouses, have given up holidays to other destinations in order for us to study during our summer vacations in Prague. Family members and friends have had to make concessions when we told them we couldn't visit on a Saturday because we had a paper due. Without your support, none of this would be possible, so thank you. Okay, so here comes the personal part. So Maya, where's Maya? Maya. I told you this last year that you have a way about you which is tranquil and graceful, that is very calming, at least to me. I remember Margarita reading your aura last year, and she also felt your calm demeanor. I can just imagine you in a classroom full of children, how they must flock to your essence. What a gift. Morton, you missed this earlier. We're going to change this, and we're going to say, Morton, na parad. It means to the castle, right? Glad you made it. Okay, now it's not graduating, all right? Too bad. Okay. Morton, our sole man in the group, you held your own against all us women. Way, where are you, Way? Thank you for lending him to us. Morton, I know it must have been a bit baffling for you at times, but your quiet confidence and eloquence suit you well for this position. Ladies, I saw a different side of Morton last year at Sarah and Chris's wedding, when Morton let loose. When he lets loose, he lets loose. But I will leave it at that, because what happens in Prague stays in Prague. We did have a funny conversation this week, this past week, when after a long night without sleep, I stood by the tea kettle wondering why it wasn't boiling, when Morton calmly walked over and pointed out that it wasn't on. It was a long week, okay? He then teasingly said to me, "And you're getting a master's?" There's Alice. Hi. Alice, what an adventure you have had this past year, teaching in Spain. While you were quiet in class, I have seen your Facebook entries, okay? Over the year, and have gleaned a much different side of you. You are adventurous and fearless, which is what makes a good teacher, so keep it up. Good luck this summer by the beach, that's what you told me we're going, and with your future teaching assignment. Andy. Besides my husband, Andy, you are the only person I know who wakes up in the morning with a smile on your face and completely, and I mean completely awake. Amazing quality. Also, if I may add, a fun person to sit next to in class, because you are also very goofy and always pull a giggle out of me at the most inappropriate times. You're a good friend, and we wish you the best of luck in your new position in China. I'm not China, where are you going? Did she just sound real quick? I think you're going to China, so that's where you're going. Kalina, our resident animal lover, whose criteria for moving to another country is to make sure her dog and cat can come with her as well. An admirable trait, since they are part of your family, and one I completely understand, and you're doing the same thing. Kalina is also a perfectionist, as we saw last week when I had to observe her, this was last week, not this week, when I had to observe her put together sentences. Interestingly enough, she put together the sentences with a dog in it. However, even though it was correct, you could see her mind racing to double check her answer. She just couldn't let it go. It's because of this determination that I predict, because Kalina is also an avid writer, that we will be seeing Kalina's best-selling novel on bookshelves soon. By the way, she'll be writing this book while living in a castle in the south of France. Seriously, if anyone will do it, it will be her. Okay, the next group of women I have clearly bonded with this summer, as we have all lived in Sabina's house. You really get to know people when you live with them. Melita. We looked up your horoscope, and while you are a Virgo, you also have Aries in your rising sign, a very fiery combination. Some of you know Melita as being very blunt, straightforward, and maybe a bit intimidating. I think you scared Morton at times. However, the Melita that I know and love is also incredibly funny, self-effacing, and boy, let me tell you, the most loyal friend one could ever have. She would give you the shirt off her back if you needed it. Told myself I wouldn't cry. Okay. Melita, I admire your honesty. If I ask you, does my butt look big in this? You will tell me, okay? If I piss you off, you will tell me. And we will talk it out, cry, and then laugh about it. You are incredibly dedicated to your craft and you love your students. That is also a quality that I love about you. Layla, our lovely Snow White. Not only does Layla look like Snow White, she really is Snow White. Innocent, kind, and very trusting. Though I think she, rightfully so, knew when not to trust us in the house. Her ability to put a positive spin on any situation is truly, truly amazing. However, she does have a hidden talent, which we were all entertained with in the car on the way to school in the mornings. The girl can improvise limp-sync dance like no one else. Honestly, she put Jimmy Fallon to shame. It is this combination of incredible kindness and fun, goofy side that makes her the best kindergarten teacher I've had the privilege of knowing. I have seen such growth in you over the course of sharing this experience called a master's degree. We are all very proud of you and can hardly wait to see where life leads you. Kim was apparently supposed to be up here. Kim, our resident dissident. You stood up for yourself and all of us to make sure we got the graduation we deserved. Havel would be very proud of you.
Thank you.
This does not surprise me. Kim is very firm in her beliefs and will not accept mediocrity for herself or anybody else. We went to this little store near Sabina's house where two young girls, who much to our relief spoke English, were running the store for their parents. Kim asked the girls how come their English was so good, and they told her that they were learning English in school. She then said they were doing a good job teaching them, and then told them she was an English teacher. You should have seen the look of longing in these two girls' eyes. Then they said, we wish you were our teacher, at which point Kim said, if I were your teacher, we would be having too much fun to learn. While I do believe you would be having fun, I also believe that learning from you would be an incredible experience. I have learned from you, and I can say it has been a pleasure to be your partner in class and your friend for life. Sabina. Save the best for last, my soul sister. We met through an online course with Professor Carver where we had to work in a group project together. Our other group member asked to be reassigned to a group in her own time zone, which is understandable. However, this left Sabina and I to work together via Skype, me and Holland, her and Chuck. To make a long story short, we just hit it off right away. We finish each other's sentences, we tend to come up with the same quotes for class. Really, if you believe in reincarnation, we must have been siblings in a past life. We met face-to-face last summer when she picked me up from the airport and we headed off to Open Gate, where we probably got lost finding the place. Lost my place. Actually, she was smart. She had a navigation system. She was horrified by the food and felt responsible for letting us know that they do know how to cook in Czech. We found that out this summer as Sabina played host to us in her home. The girl can cook, and she has restored our faith in Czech cuisine. Sabina, I have seen you grow into a woman full of self-esteem and confidence, one who will no longer question her abilities, but rather know her worth. And boy, are you worth your weight in gold. You have been the mother of our group, making sure we got to school on time every morning, making sure we felt at home in your house. We owe you so much that I cannot fully explain here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Katie. Oh, now I bet you thought we forgot about you. How can we forget to say something about my fellow orator? Katie, I understand that you are not a teacher. However, you bring a wealth of internationalism and open-mindedness that is worthy of any profession. I am hoping that someday you take the dive into teaching because the world would be a better place for it. If not, I can certainly see you being my head of school someday. You are a born leader. Thank you for sharing the stage with me. To the rest of the graduating class, congratulations. You did it. Well done, and the best of luck in the future. Thank you.
memorable speeches, some from Steve Jobs, Ellen DeGeneres, and all over the map. And I found some reoccurring themes. Just trust yourself, follow your dreams, don't be afraid of failure, it will only open new doors. Be authentic and true to yourself, keep your desire to learn, and always have passion for what you do. One thing I realized while I was listening to these speeches is that all of you know and understand these already. We've all traveled the world, completed a master's program or two, learned about new cultures, we've all failed at some point or another, and it was all to follow our dreams and make them a reality. This is an incredible group of educators in front of me, and it's been an honor to learn from you and with you throughout this program. You will all go far in life, and I know you just said I'd be your headmaster, but you'll all be hiring me later in life, I'm pretty sure. So remember me. So for my cohort, I wanted to give a quick shout out to each of you. Rachel, you bring a wealth of knowledge about different cultures from your experiences with your students and show us a new side of what teaching is with your observations, so thank you. Melanie, you are a free spirit who brought a fresh perspective to the group, and you have an obvious passion for teaching and changing the lives of your students, so keep that up. Amanda is not here today, but I wanted to say something for her. She has brought a great wealth of knowledge to this group through her life and her teaching experiences. She was a resident third culture kid. Well, there's a couple of them in here, but she was the one who spoke about it. She always showed such great insight and creativity in everything she did. Allison, your effervescent personality always shed a positive light on any situation and showed us your zest and passion for life. So keep that up too. And then Julia, our resident scientist. You always found the logic and intuition in a subject, but you have an adventurous side that always allowed us to continue to discover new and exciting perspectives. So don't forget that. And Lynn, don't forget you either. You have always been an advocate for those who need it, and this class, and yourself. Your confidence is contagious, and your conviction is admirable. So I commend you on all of your teaching abilities as well. So all the advice that is normally given during a commencement speech is true, and you should remember it, but I feel like it's not adequate for this outstanding group of people. You all chose this career passion because, let's face it, nobody picks education because they don't know what else to do. That just doesn't happen. That's business. This means it takes a special person to teach the next generation. So please remember this next time you doubt yourself, because as the film director Jennifer Lee says, self-doubt is one of the most destructive forces. From here on out, you are enough. Dare I say, more than enough. Each of us have traveled, we've experienced, failed, loved, and lost in our lives. I can say with confidence that this has helped each of us stay authentic and be true to ourselves. It's clear that fear is not our enemy, and passion is what keeps us going. In the words of our professor, Larry Hagler, we keep moving. We all strive for our dreams. I don't think we would be here if we didn't. We care enough about furthering our education to take on the stress of a master's program while working full-time, and we have succeeded at this moment with that incredible feat. So congratulations. I want to congratulate you and your achievement and remind you to never stop striving. In the words of Winston Churchill, education is an appetite. Make sure you never lose your hunger for knowledge or travel. This is what defines us and makes us unique. A little surprise. Apologize if I start crying. At last, this moment has come along. Our stressed out days are over, and life is like a song. Oh yeah, at last.
share with you some of their experiences over the course of the program. So we prepared a little slideshow. That was Wake up, sleepy, dopey, and grumpy in the morning, you must be Snow White. No, actually, she earned the nickname from her relentlessly positive outlook, even if it was tested this week. With her honesty, integrity, compassion, and I don't know you well, but I think quite simply your goodness. She is perhaps the fairest teacher. Julia. Alderson. Our resident scientist and mathematician, a respected colleague for her calm and concise analytical mind, the reservoirs of patience, and the clarity of her vision and voice, Julia was nonetheless the one responsible for the antelope part. This illustrates not skepticism or positivism, but holistic respect for all forms of knowledge. Julia approaches her work with the calm thoroughness of a scientist and the wonder and creativity of an artist. We live a bit at home here in the court of New York. When Martin speaks, everyone listens. In fact, people stop talking in order to listen to him. And this is not only because it would be impossible to hear him if they didn't, but because they know he doesn't open his mouth until his thought process is complete. He is a philosopher by training and by inclination, but was also a mailman and a baker. He is no Socrates in the clouds, but simply a thoughtful and well-grounded man. He does not change his demeanor when teaching small children. His mindful, gentle approach is appropriate for all ages. Maya is also one of the quiet ones, but as I learned this week, not shy. Rather, introverts, like our missing colleague, Amanda Shaw. She draws her energy from within. She thinks and listens intently, hearing directly and inquisitively into the eyes of the speaker, while drawing gentle dance steps on the floor with her toe. Her slow, cooked, elegant responses and generally heartfelt manner indicate the gentle dance of the mind as well. Whenever and wherever we teach, I expect that you will create an oasis of calm and an opening of mind for your students. Then and a self-proclaimed goofball, Lynn nonetheless commands the respect of her colleagues, and I can't but suppose from her students and administration as well, for the sheer force of her positive energy, though I'm told she can be a bit grumpy. Perhaps we should get some more. As you can tell from her speech, as well as the fact that she was selected as the speaker this week, Lynn is a leader, however much she likes to play a child. Lynn combines the energy and wonder of a 5-year-old with the experience, judgment, and wisdom of a woman her own age, or perhaps 10 years younger. This happened in Prague. This will not stay. Alexandra McIntyre. Alex is the product of Waldorf education. Waldorf is an institution that takes seriously the buzzwords of child-centered classroom, scaffolding, interdisciplinarity, and following means, the importance of play. She claims to have fallen into teaching accidentally, as though into an open sewer. By the way, that metaphor is not meant to disparage the teaching profession. It's a shout out to the students. Let's just say it's just a metaphor. Working within a system and a society, any society, that does not always live up to the full meaning of its creed, she advocates for her students and her own integrity. I hope and expect that this degree will assist you in that. Melita is a survivor of battles, both real and metaphorical. She knows how to fight for what she believes, and she knows why. Her vision of education as not only a democratic practice, but a healing one, and ultimately a preventative of the kinds of atrocities abetted by ignorance, intolerance, and hatred, promises dividends far beyond what any test could measure. She teaches for a better world. As you know, Amanda Shaw will not join us for this celebration as she's heading to although I got the impression that she doesn't have to take off. Sabina Slezak. Sabina was described to me as the mother of the group, as described to me. In fact, her students call her Mama Slezak. Well, there were other contenders for the position within the group, and not only in longitudinal terms. She took the group into her home and plied them with Moravian wine and bread until her selection was assured. Her hospitality and generosity is sincere, perhaps partly because she knows firsthand how circumstances can force us to rely on the kindness of strangers. But I suspect there are other sources in your nature as well. Melanie Rose is at age 4, Melanie could recite the alphabet back.
Oh, God, seriously? You're really not making me do that.
I'm not making you do that.
Do it. Wow. Probably not being on the spot. ZYX, WBT, SRQP, OMNL, KJ, IHD, FEBCBA.
I remember asking to do something I wasn't confident. Melanie calls her students teachers and is can recite the alphabet backwards and is unafraid to turn other conventions of the educational system upside down if it serves her teaching and if it serves her students. I mean, it serves her learning and teachers. Despite the vibrant energy and the structured chaos she evokes, Melanie has a tattoo on her arm that It says simply be. And that speaks to her mindfulness of the beauty and possibilities of the moment. Okay. Be honest. Graduates and face their families. Traditionally, the moving of the tassel at graduation is called turning the tassel. It symbolizes one's transition from candidate to graduate. When I say go, turn your tassels right to left. Ready? Go. Please join me in congratulating our graduates. Again. This marks the end of our graduation ceremony. Please join us for a small reception, which will be here in a moment. Thank you.
Thank you.